A physical network function is a hardware appliance that provides any networking function, like, for example, a router, a firewall, a load balancer, any function that is outside of the domain of your cloud or your NFDI, a switch, for example, any box that is outside the domain, but that it has to do with the network service. So it's relevant for your network service for some reason. Maybe as part of your network service operation, you need to configure some routing or some rules in those boxes, so your network service can work. That's why PNFs are relevant in an NFV world, even in the virtualized world. Then we have the concept of PDU, which is the physical deployment unit. This is more tied to NFV terminology, like saying VDU or KDU, which we have been talking about throughout the week. PDU refers to the physical element, but it refers to the instance of the physical appliance, the instance of the PNF that we are using for our network service. Imagine that it's like an abstraction of your PNF that is used or consumed by your network service instance. So at instantiation time, there needs to be a PDU available out of that physical network function so that your network service can be launched with the PNF taken into account. Then you have the hybrid network function, which is a network function that can have physical and virtual elements like VDUs and PDUs. That's also possible. So in OSM, we build them in the same way. We build a PNF or a VNF or a mixed network function or hybrid network function in the same way, using the same model and just adding a couple of additional attributes. But there is an extra thing. I mean, we can model a physical network function using a file that is very similar to the PNFD. For example, the file that you have used to build the Magma access gateway and the SRS LTE emulator. This same format is used to model a physical network function. Of course, you would not need some things like CPU, RAM, or those kind of things, because OSM is not actually instantiating, it's not creating any physical thing. It's just being aware of its existence, so it can go and do things over it, like configuring it, for example. So for that, we need to instruct OSM about the available PDUs that can be modeled in a network function. We will understand more about it now. Okay, so the difference between PNF and PDU basically is that the PNF, you model it in a descriptor file, and you indicate which type of PDU it is. You can define that with any keyword that you want. It is a gateway, a firewall, a load balancer, whatever. And you assign name to the interfaces, okay? And then you create PDUs that are like instances of this PNF that can be used in your deployments. So if you create the PNF and upload it to the catalog, that's not enough for the system to know that it can actually use it. There needs to be an instance with IP addresses that it can go and hit and use. Okay, so you can have, for example, a router modeled with a PNF, and you upload that router to the system. But then you have, in the PDUs, you create router 1 with IP address 1, router 2 with IP address 2, router 3 with IP address 3. And then when you instantiate a network service that consumes a PNF, OSM goes and sees, okay, do I have any PDU available modeled with this PNF? Yes, there are 3 routers, router 1, router 2, router 3. Okay, I will take the first one. And then if you launch another instance of the same network service that uses the PNF, or another network service that uses a PNF, then it will go and grab the second instance. After that, then it will go and grab the third instance. And if you're out of instances of PDUs, then you will not be able to launch that network service. Okay, so in our example, we are now covering the PNF part. So there is a router in this system already existing there. You cannot see it in your tenants because it's not a virtual instance. I mean, it may be, but it's anyway for you. It's a router that is located outside your domain, and it has some fixed IP addressing. It has an IP address that belongs to the management network of this environment, which is this one here, which we use for the router to go outside internet, and also you will use it to manage it because OSM is in the same segment. And we have an internal IP address, an internal interface connected to the SGI network, which is already shared throughout all the tenants. So this router connects in some way to the SGI network that you have been using, where your Magma access gateway is located or will be located. So in this way, whenever you instantiate this PNF again, you will have a possibility of connecting to this PNF, which is already there. You don't have to do anything. But if we want to control it from OSM, we need to make OSM aware of its existence. Okay, so we need to create a PDU instance of this PNF, at least in your tenants, so that OSM is aware of this PNF and says, okay, this exists. And we also need to create a PNFD, a descriptor that models it so that OSM knows how to manage it, which network it uses, for example, to reach it. Okay, so 2 things. So now we are going to add the PDU instance. What you have to do is create a file. You have 2 options. Okay, you can create a file, or if you feel more comfortable, you can do it through the dashboard. I will explain how to do it. So create a file in your VMs that with this content or a similar content. It needs to have a name, a description, which is free. You can put whatever you want. But the type is very important. Remember that the PDU matches the PNF descriptor with this type. So we will put gateway. Okay. Then in Vim accounts, you will put inside brackets. So these brackets here are important. You will put your Vim ID. So do a OSM Vim list, and the ID that you obtain from your Vim, you put it there. Share it false, and then you configure the interfaces. The interfaces are exactly these ones, because this is the single PNF that we have out there, and we are making the system aware of these 2 interfaces. And when you are done with creating this file, you run this command, OSM PDU create -- descriptor file pdu.yaml, or whatever is the name of the file, and it will create a PDU in your system. It's very important that you use your Vim here so that OSM knows where the PDU is located. The other alternative is to use the OSM graphical interface. To the left in the menu, you will find an option for creating PDUs. It will say something like PDU instances. So in PDU instances, you will have the opportunity to create a new PDU instance, and you will see this menu here. So again, you put router, whatever name you want. The PDU type is very important. It needs to be gateway because that's how we are modeling our descriptor. Then the Vim account is selectable here. You don't need to grab the ID. It's you just select the Vim account that you want to use, where you are instantiating Magma, for example. And then you add the interfaces. It has an Ethernet 0, which belongs to the management network. So important to put management true so that OSM knows that it will go to that IP address to manage it and configure it. And the network name is OSM X. And then you have a second interface. This one is optional actually, but you can put it. Ethernet 1 with an IP address and is not management and is connected to the SGI. So you are telling OSM, okay, I have this PDU. I can, I learn about this PNF, this specific PNF through this PDU instance. And then we create the PNFD. This is the descriptor file. It's a generic descriptor file which describes how this PDU looks like or this PNF looks like. In the same Yun2 folder, you will find under the Hackfest Gateway PNFD, this file here, which contains the name and the management interface, which is important. But most important, you will see PDU type gateway. So whenever you include this descriptor or this PNFD in your network service, it will, OSM will know that you want a PDU instance and you want to manage it from this network service and run some configuration that is relevant for your network service. So there is a BNF configuration block inside there. I will not enter into the details because you will see that in the next session, but it's basically, it will let us use a proxy charm to connect to the PNF and configure it for us, for our use. And finally, you include it in your network service descriptor. In the Yun2 folder, you will find the network service under Hackfest Magma Access Gateway eNodeB NSD. So just go and uncomment these lines that are there to include the PNF. Okay, so make sure that you modify this file and just remove these lines. And these lines will just, is the same as adding the BNF or the PNF in this case, and letting OSM know that it is its management interface is connected to the management network or the management DLT that we are using. Okay, so that's how our final network service descriptor will look like. We have put just these commented lines so that it's easier for everyone to be in the same page instead of having to type all these things here. But as you can see, it's the same structure that we use with BNFs. We just add a member BNF index and refer to the descriptor. And the descriptor is created in the previous page, and it's already in the folder. So make sure that you do those two things. First, create your PDU even through through the CLI like this, creating the PDU YAML and putting the BID, and then creating the PDU with that YAML, or through the OSM user interface, through this menu that you will see to the left into the PDU instances option. Important that you put the PDU type as gateway and the Beam account, you select the right Beam account, and interfaces, you need to put this specific IP address, at least the management interface needs to match, because this IP address is the one being used by OSM to manage it. Next, you create the PNFD. It's already there in the Yun2 folder. You just look at it, and the structure is the same as the BNF, so it's nothing new, but the PDU type. This is telling the system, okay, this is not a BNF, this is a PDU. I mean, it's a PNF descriptor, which refers to a PDU instance that is called gateway. So OSM will say, I will go and grab a PDU instance if you need one of these instances in your network service. As you can see, as you will notice, there is no sign of flavor, CPU, memory, disk, because OSM obviously is not instantiating anything. It's just referring to it. And of course, we're telling how to configure it. So the second thing you need to do, or the third one, first is create a PDU, next explore this file here, get familiar with this, and then go to the network service and comment these lines here that are adding the PNF to our network service. So now our network service of the packet core is not going to be just the BDUs of access gateway and emulator. It's going to be add a PNF. So we have two network functions now in our network service. It's growing. It's just that one of the network functions is a physical network function. Okay, and finally we launch it. But before we launch the network service with the PNF, we need to add the automation part, which is the important thing. I mean, PNF orchestration, since you are not launching anything, you are connecting to something that exists already in the environment. It's all about automating. It's all about operating that physical network function, but in the context of our network service. So you all 40 or 50 will be hitting the same box, but you're adding different configurations to it. So that's the interesting thing. Everyone configures that PNF of our network service. We will get familiar with the charms that we will run against this PNF, and then we will launch the network service.